You are Locked On Tigers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And away we go. Hello and welcome in to a live Locked On Tigers Postcast. I am your host, Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. And these are the type of shows where we've got a lot to discuss. Okay, Tigers lose to the Guardians 8-4. That's not the big story here. We'll get into Dillon Dingler's debut and everything else. We got trade deadline talk, the flurry of roster moves, and it's all going to be broken down, discussed, and overanalyzed, and everything else next. So don't go anywhere. As always, fired up to be with you, and appreciate you making Locked On Tigers Postcast your destination following the final out. And as soon as that out's recorded, you know we're with you because we've got you covered. Your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube on Locked On Sports Detroit. If you haven't yet subscribed, what the heck are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Tell a friend as well. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast is also brought to you by my friends over at Supply House and SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. All right, this is one of those times where the Tigers are actually at the forefront of the conversation on a MLB national scene because of the intrigue of a couple of pitchers that the Tigers have. And rumors are flying as we speak, as the game was going on. Tomorrow's going to be fun. It's a day game, and the trade deadline, of course, at 6 o'clock. All kinds of things could be happening. And if you believe everything you read, it feels like there are some teams in a bidding war for Jack Flaherty. It feels like there's still the 50-50 potential, according to John Paul Morosi of MLB Network. He said he wouldn't go as far to say 50-50 that the Tigers are going to trade Tarik Skubal, but of course, ongoing conversations with a number of teams. So it's going to be fun to see how it all unfolds. But let's get into tonight's game. Again, Tigers lose. They don't have any more pitchers, and it's frustrating to watch. And it's not one you get so upset about, but it feels like it's the 10th straight bullpen day. And I almost didn't even have to change anything from yesterday's graphic and yesterday's recap where it was a bullpen day. The offense did come alive and score a few runs late there. And I guess somewhat made it interesting with 2 in the 7th and 2 more in the 9th. But you're kidding yourself if you don't think this was a blowout. I mean, the Guardians were up 7-0, and there was just no chance the Tigers were winning this game. So it's back-to-back snooze fest at Comerica Park. And the finale of the brief 2-game series before the Royals come to town will be tomorrow afternoon during the trade deadline buzz. It's the only day game in all of Major League Baseball tomorrow. So it just provides an interesting dynamic to continue to monitor while, oh, by the way, we'll have some baseball going on. But I've given you my take on this program before, and I'll give it to you one more time before we get into the Dillon Dingler debut and discuss everything that he was tonight, as well as the Brian Sammons debut, and discuss all the innings that he ate up. But I think there's some room for some middle ground here. And I have a lot of people reaching out to me, some Tigers fans, some not Tigers fans. Why would the Tigers ever trade Tarik Skubal? He's a part of the future. You know, if you're a cheerleader like some people in the media are for this team, then yeah, you think Tarik Skubal, there's no way you trade him. But if you're on the other side and you think, how could you not trade him? This team is going nowhere. You got to get some type of return. You got to start plugging holes, and we know that the holes on this roster are aplenty. And so there is a conversation for both. And like a lot of things, this is crazy, and maybe it's not the hot take anybody's looking for, but I think the answer might be somewhere in the middle. Hear me out on this. I think holding on to Tarik Skubal, unless it's the Baltimore Orioles saying, here's Jackson Holiday, here's the rest of our top prospects, unless it's a deal you simply can't say no to, then I'm in favor of holding on to Tarik Skubal. Trading Jack Flaherty, see what you can get in return for him. After all, he would be just a rental, it's just a one-year deal with him. He's not under any control, and I don't see him re-signing with the Tigers in free agency. But if I'm wrong, listen, I don't have an insight. I'm not in the clubhouse this year. I don't hear as much. I read everything that everybody else does from the beat writers online, from the conversation in around this team, and it's anybody's best guess at this point. But the idea of holding on to Skubal and maybe, adding some bats to this team is more compelling to me than shipping Skubal off. However, I'm not anti-trade Skubal if the return warrants it. But there's also the trust factor with Scott Harris, which I've talked about at length on this program. I'm not to the point where I trust Scott Harris. I think last year's deadline debacle is an example of why not to trust Scott Harris and this Tigers front office. And that said, you have to give some credit to the direction of this organization for snidbits and snapshots. Is that a word? Tidbits, snapshots? You get what I'm trying to say. From time to time this season, we have seen glimpses. We've seen little bitty glimpses of what this team could be and the young core that Scott Harris is starting to build, and that's enough to believe in, but now you need those complementary pieces. So let me know what you think in the comments. We'll get kind of wild tonight because it's our second to last show because the Tigers have a day game tomorrow. So we've got 2 of these shows before the trade deadline. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'm going to put it up on the old poll question on the YouTube community here at some point as well. Ultimately, what do you want to see Scott Harris and this Tigers organization do at the deadline? Now, as for tonight's game, another bullpen day. Bo Brisky, yikes. He gets hit with the loss, 1-2 on the season. Only recorded 2 outs and just was not fooling anybody. And that resulted in a 3-run first inning for the Guardians. And again, they just never looked back. But you do have to give some credit to Brian Sammons, who comes in his major league debut and just chews up a bleep ton of innings and just inning after inning after inning. And it's not the prettiest final line, but an interesting note from Tigers PR here about the amount of innings that he chewed up, which is really impressive because, again, it's 7 1/3 innings in a relief appearance, 4 hits, 5 runs, all of them earned, 1 walk, struck out 5. He did give up 3 long balls. But from Tigers PR, Brian Sammons, 7 1/3 innings pitched tonight is the most by a Tiger pitcher in his major league debut since Andy Van Hecken threw a complete game shutout on September 3rd, 2002 versus Cleveland. There you go. September 3rd, 2002. I was just a young, wide-eyed baseball fan. Andy Van Hecken. I actually don't remember that. Maybe I should. I was pretty young at that time. But there you go. Tigers PR always bringing you the insightful information there. But yeah, Bo Brisky in an opener. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's, this isn't the Tampa Bay Rays that kind of patented the opener and really found success with it. And no matter what you hear on the broadcast, it's not a sustainable approach to pitching in the bigs to have a relief pitcher continue to start. And we all know that, so we don't need to spend a ton of time with that. But this idea that, you've got just such a variety of arms, the offense doesn't know what's coming. No, that's just it. We don't have any pitchers, and it's unfortunate. And that's part of what we're going to wrap up with tonight, because I think Casey Mize going on the 60-day injured list is an interesting sign because he doesn't want to be there. His comments were rather interesting, which will be in our last segment with the roster updates, news, and notes. But Dillon Dingler made his debut tonight. I thought he looked poised, especially in that RBI double. I love the interview with his entire family. Shout out to Bally Sports there. Trevor Thompson always does such a great job with that. But 1 for 3 tonight with an RBI, hit the ball hard a couple times, drew a walk, and he's earned it. His numbers in Toledo, and it was interesting perspective from his parents. It felt like in some senses this was a long time coming, but at the same time, in the whole body of work, he's still a young guy and still has hopefully has a very, very bright future. And, with him finally getting that first taste of big league pitching, it'll be fun to see how his skills translate at the big league level. And obviously with the Carson Kelly trade, this is why Dillon Dingler, or the Carson Kelly trade, you could even make the case that Dillon Dingler performance in AAA warranted kind of forced the hand for the Carson Kelly trade to the Texas Rangers. But appreciate everybody tuning in as always. And it's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. We'll get to some comments here. Demetrius McNeil is first up. That's 4 games in a row the Tigers have fallen behind and playing catch up. That's the theme of Tigers baseball. As of late, it certainly is. And I know they came back for the win on Saturday, but you look at the past games. Yep, they obviously fell behind early yesterday, losing 5-0. Came back and won 7-2 despite falling behind 2-0, and then fell behind early Friday night against the Twins as well. So listen, this is not a great baseball team, unfortunately. There's been stints that have been really, really fun. They've breathed life into the fan base at times, given a kind of a just behind the curtain look into what could be coming in the future. And for 2024, based on the construction of this team and the refusal to invest and spend and add any bats besides Mark Canha and Gio Urshela from the very beginning, this is kind of, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, is probably the best way to put that. But we've got 2 more segments in the books. Don't go anywhere. We will talk about the trade deadline latest, although we've already kind of gotten into that. And we'll continue to take your comments on this episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast. Don't go anywhere. Locked On Tigers Postcast, just getting started here tonight. This episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast is brought to you by Stitch Fix and StitchFix.com. All you have to do is go to StitchFix.com/MLB. You know what that instant confidence feels like, that instant confidence boost that you get from an outfit that fits you perfectly and makes you look really, really good. It's how I feel when I wear Stitch Fix. That's how you should feel. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. Here's how it works. Real simple. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You order boxes when you want to and how you want to. There's no subscription required, and they'll send 5 just for you, made for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works, and you send back the rest. That's a really nice perk as well. Keep what works, send back the rest. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. And if you don't like to shop, hey, I hate shopping. There's plenty of other things I'd rather be doing. That's where Stitch Fix comes into play. They save you the time and effort. Plus, you get outfits that make you look and feel really, really good. And if you don't love something, not a big deal. Just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. 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 We love that. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started at StitchFix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's StitchFix.com/MLB for $20 off. StitchFix.com/MLB. You must redeem that code within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kids fixes. One more time, Stitch, STITCH, Fix, FIX.com/MLB. for $20 off. All right, it is a Monday night, the trade deadline tomorrow. The Tigers and Guardians will play the finale of just the brief 2-game series tomorrow afternoon from Comerica Park. So there will be a game going on while all the rumors heat up. And I mentioned it earlier, but John Paul Morosi was on 97.1 The Ticket today talking about the chances of Tarik Skubal being traded. And I thought the interesting part with Tarik Skubal is that it seems like the conversations have kind of been a bit of a roller coaster. There's ups, there's downs, there's lulls, and then it heats up. But the direct quote from John Paul Morosi of MLB and Network says, "I'm not yet to the point where I feel like the chance of a Skubal trade is above 50%, but I think it's in that range. A large return will be required to land Skubal. who leads the American League with 2.35 ERA in 21 starts. The lefty is under team control through 2026. So that's how likely it is. I mean, it's anybody's guess is what that tells me. And I'm very curious how Scott Harris and this organization will handle such a pivotal trade deadline for this Tigers team, because I'm talking with people today. There's so many holes with this team, and it's easy to get distracted on nights like Saturday night, where you've got Tarik Skubal on the mound, you've got Colt Keith going yard, and when Riley Green's healthy, obviously those young pieces are there. The young core is there, but how do you surround them to sustain a level of success over the course of multiple years, but at the same time without leveraging your best player and the best arm in baseball? And that's really what it boils down to. And if you want to sell me on the fact that you keep Tarik Skubal and you add the complementary pieces by buying in free agency, like Ben Verlander suggested, I can get on board with that. In fact, I think that's exactly where I am. I listened to Ben Verlander's podcast the other day, the flipping bats, bat flips, whatever it is, it's easy enough to find. But he made some really good points that if this organization ownership can just get back to the way that Mr. Ilitch ran the team, this just looks so much different. And I'm sorry for those that are regular listeners that hear me go on and on and on about this night in and night out. But as we hone in on this trade deadline, I think because of the inability or the refusal to add complementary pieces outside of internally developing them, this team is kind of in a rut in terms of certainly not being, all in, fire sale, sell everybody, but you can't make the case to buy either. They're just kind of in this purgatory in between with some really, really nice pieces that other teams want, which is what makes it compelling for some teams to want to make a deal like Baltimore, because they've got the prospects to deal it. And I think the Dodgers have kind of shown their hand in making the trade for Michael Kopech. The Houston Astros were another team interested in Jack Flaherty, but they are on the verge of making a deal with Toronto, I believe. Let me double check that, because with Toronto, if they make that deal with Toronto, then you can kind of count on the fact that they're likely not going to be making that deal. So the Yankees become the team that's most interested in Jack Flaherty, perhaps planning to deal Nestor Cortez if that trade is completed. That's according to Bob Nightengale of USA Today. One thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And listen, if I had to put my prediction hat on, which predictions from me are probably worth nothing, I would expect a Flaherty deal to be done and the Tigers to keep Skubal. That's my gut. That's my gut feeling. It's my 2 cents, worth way less than that. So don't go putting all of everything I say on playing roulette and putting it on black, because it's just my gut that they'll keep Skubal and a Flaherty deal will be made because of the interest with him, even though he's just a rental, whereas Skubal obviously has the 2 years of team control. But a ton of roster moves were made today, so make sure that you stick around, because we are going to discuss each and every one of them, because that's what we do, talking Tigers 24/7. You know what else is 24/7? Locked On's launched their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, and now it's available on the free Fire TV channels app. We're going to take a quick break and discuss all the roster moves that were made. And we've got a couple people joining in right now. Dan Fedrosi, at some point, they need to build around a young dominant arm. If you deal Skubal, are you getting Skubal type back? That's the biggest argument, obviously, for keeping Skubal. And that's why I can be told, I can be convinced, I can be sold on the importance of keeping Skubal. I just don't want to listen to those that say, Skubal and the, I know Woodward Sports was talking about it. 97 Won the Ticket was talking about it, obviously, where this team is so close and competing for playoffs. I wish they were. As a fan of the team, I wish they were, but they're just not. And Skubal has done all he could, but he's not the singular guy. You need more than one singular arm. But I do agree with the notion of building around Tarik Skubal. And if like I said earlier in the broadcast, if I had my preference, it would be keep Skubal, trade Flaherty, get something in return to try to get some position players to fill the holes, and keep Skubal and build around him, make him the face of the franchise, pay him big money. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and say if there's an offer that's too good to refuse that you don't take that offer. So I think that's maybe that's a cop out. You can say I'm sitting on the fence with that, but I don't think it's as black and white as either trade him or you keep him. But again, that's my thoughts on the matter. I do think the Tigers, when it's all said and done, are not going to trade him. But we'll talk about all the roster moves that were made, because there were a lot of them, and that includes Casey Mize going to the 60-day DL. Don't go anywhere. We wrap it up with that next on Locked On Tigers Postcast. This episode of Locked On Tigers Postcast is brought to you by Supply House, which is where you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products all online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. That's what we're into here, getting the job done right. You can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from around 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? You can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. And get this, you talk to a real person. We love that. You can't stand those automated recording voices. You talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free trade master program. Every trade master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks. It all goes down at supplyhouse.com. All right, lots of roster news to get to here, and the Tigers did acquire a right-handed pitcher from the Dodgers, Ricky Vanasco. And if you remember, he is one that was pitching during the fallout of the Dodgers against the Tigers at Comerica Park on that Saturday, and that big comeback win in exchange for cash considerations. And the Tigers then optioned him to AAA Toledo. Other news to get to: Parker Meadows began an injury rehab assignment with AAA Toledo today, so hopefully we'll see him back with the big league squad sooner rather than later, which you love to see. And then and I know we joke on this program from time to time, say something nice about Javi, but he was placed on the medical emergency bereavement list today, so prayers out to Javi Baez and his family, what they could be going through there. The Tigers also optioned left-handed pitcher Easton Lucas to AAA Toledo. We know Dillon Dingler obviously back up with the big league squad to make his MLB debut tonight. Kreidler's back up from AAA Toledo. Brian Sammons made his big league debut tonight and went 7 1/3 in relief. And that sent Casey Mize to the 60-day injured list. And that's the one we want to focus on to tie a bow on tonight's program, because Casey Mize spoke with The Athletic. Cody Statehaven of The Athletic, covers the Tigers, talked with Casey Mize, and he said he wants to be out there. He's ready to go. He'd already made a rehab assignment, and pushing him to the 60-day injured list means the fact that the Tigers aren't going to see him until September at some point. So I think that goes to show there's a little bit of, I don't want to say tumultuous relationship with the Tigers and Casey Mize, but there might be some friction building there because the high expectations for Casey Mize, the first round pick, all the success he had at Auburn, and the injuries he's fought at the big league level, it just hasn't worked out yet. It hasn't come into fruition. And so I think with the lack of success and the lack of just sustaining health at the big league level comes that frustration and comes that friction and turmoil where it can make things a little bit dicey between Casey Mize and the direction of his performance from this organization and the expectations and the shortcomings there. So we'll see how it plays out. But I get concerned when you start talking about Casey Mize and obviously Spencer Torkelson. Those are two first round picks that right now, if you had to, quote unquote, gun to my head, I had to say, yeah, they're busts. They have been busts. And I know it's early enough they can rise out of that status. And Casey Mize, it's been a health thing, whereas Spencer Torkelson just wasn't able to hit big league pitching. So you hope that both of them can break out of the, just this funk that has landed them where they are. But right now they're both busts. And that is that just sets a franchise back so far when you have just two such critical assets that don't live up to what you're hoping to get out of them just for an entire career, the long term of it all. So hopefully we look back on Monday, July 29th, when Casey Mize went to the 60-day DL injured list. I got to stop saying DL. It's such a bad habit, but the injured list, and he rises back and comes back with a vengeance and is somewhat of a serviceable pitcher. I don't think he's going to be who's the comparisons. He got the Greg Maddux, with so much control and movement. And I don't think it's that, but if he can be fourth or fifth starter in your rotation, I think that's best case scenario. And again, hopefully I'm wrong. But that said, appreciate, as always, everybody tuning in to Locked On Tigers Postcast. If you missed the live rendition, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. It's all free because it's all part of the Locked On Network, your team every single day. Tigers lose to the Guardians, another bullpen day, 8-4 the final in this one. They wrap up the series tomorrow. And for the Tigers, in a day game, Comerica Park, not sure who's going to be pitching. If Jack Flaherty is still a Tiger, he should pitch Thursday. But we'll see who goes for the Tigers tomorrow, who just don't have any pitchers. But after the loss, Tigers now 52-56, back to 4 games under 500, 25-27 at home. The Guardians continue to cruise atop the AL Central at 64-42. 31-27 away from home. So a little bit earlier start tomorrow, obviously with the day game, 1:10 first pitch. We'll be on the air immediately following because we love a little midweek day game. This is the only day game in Major League Baseball tomorrow. So as we get you closer and closer to the MLB trade deadline, it'll all be going down while the Tigers and Guardians are in action at Comerica Park, which will be a lot of fun to monitor. So we'll have to multitask. If you're at work, I always give permission to everybody at work to watch the game. But now, in addition to watching the game, you can follow the MLB trade deadline rumors and transactions online. So thanks so much, as always, for tuning in. If you haven't yet, subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit. My name is Jake Riepma. It's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. And we'll see you next time. Won't have to wait long, less than 24 hours after the day game tomorrow. Locked On Sports Detroit, Locked On Tigers Postcast. Have a wonderful night.